we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our RTAP bi-monthly webinar series. Thank you, everyone, for joining for today's webinar. And my name is Nikila, and I'm a transportation planner. I work for Kansas RTAP as a co-PI, along with Kara Cox, who is the RTAP director. Meanwhile, please feel free to add your names and agencies in the chat box so that we all can get acquainted. And in the meantime, I'll just go over some housekeeping rules before introducing our today's speaker. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded and we will be posting this video on our YouTube channel along with others which you may have already seen. If not, I'm gonna post the link right now. There you go. Yeah, and please remember to keep yourself muted during the duration of the presentation, as there will be a Q&A session at the end. But if you do have some questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat box so we can address them later on. I just added my email address to the chat box in case you run into any technical issues. Feel free to reach out with any other concerns as well. So, for today's webinar, we will be hearing from Jessica Warren, who has been the mobility manager for South Central Kansas since April 2021. Her focus on creating safe, affordable, and accessible mobility solutions for all is guided by her previous work with individuals who have experienced traumatic events. She is passionate about working with organizations and systems to find equitable, big picture solutions that will increase the quality of life for as many people as possible. Jessica has a master's degree in social work from Wichita State University. In addition, Jessica has taken an active role in elevating the visibility of transit services through strategic marketing and community engagement. Along with various stakeholders, she guided the regional launch of the United Community Transit Coalition, a campaign that united multiple agencies with the goal of increasing public awareness of transit agencies and services. The coalition developed a unified marketing kit with audience-focused suggestions and provided tools to create a content that resonates with both riders and stakeholders. And that's exactly what we're going to learn from Jessica today. And with that, I will hand it over to Jessica.
Great. Thank you, Nikila. Welcome, everyone. So today's presentation is Marketing Transit Services for Impact. So strategies, tools, and stories that move people. We're going to talk a little bit more about the stories and kind of hone in specifically on that word. So what we're talking about, Nikila mentioned, is a product of the United Community Transit Coalition. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. My screen's not moving forward. There we go. So our agenda for today, the agenda with our introduction, we're going to talk about the storytelling just a little bit and why that's important and how storytelling plays into marketing. Then we'll talk about the United Community Transit Coalition, which is what created the toolkit where most of this information is coming from. That leads into the types of marketing toolkit. So within the types of marketing content, sorry. So the toolkit that we created has 8 different subsets for marketing content. And this is mostly online marketing, but there are some in-person, some talking points. So we'll cover all of those. And then we'll talk a little bit about engaging the audience and tools to start your own marketing kit. And then at the end, there's some final tips and takeaways. And then there's links to the toolkit. National RTAP has their own toolkit and a couple other useful links. So storytelling. So why are we focusing more on storytelling than marketing? It's because storytelling steps beyond marketing by giving meaning to our message. So storytelling really digs into the emotional connection that people need to make. Think about if you're scrolling through your Facebook, how many ads you see on a daily basis, or if you are, just watching TV on a streaming service or driving down the road and seeing billboards. the amount of ads that we see and the amount of content and the amount of people that are trying to get our attention every single day, all day, every day is massive. So we need to step beyond that and figure out how to grab people's attention. And we do that by grabbing their emotions. If you think about ads that have got your attention, what immediately comes to my mind is I just call it the sad pets commercials where they have like Sarah McLachlan's Arms of an Angel. I hate those commercials because they make me sad, but I remember them. So it's not our goal to make people sad, but it's our goal to be memorable and to create a connection with whoever is viewing our messaging so that they remember our services, remember our story, so that they can make that connection and hopefully use our services or talk about them or advocate for them, whatever that looks like. Along with that, we're all storytellers. We tell stories every single day, whether it's the stereotypical around the water cooler, like the gossip, or, we go home and we tell our families or our spouses about our days. We all tell stories every single day. So it doesn't mean that like we don't have to have credentials to be a storyteller. We don't have to be, you'll see quotes from Peter Forbes, who's, I believe, a writer, and then Stephen King. We don't need to be that level of storytelling to get the message across. And we just need to make that emotional connection. And that's really important. That comes from my background in social work. You have to make an emotional connection with someone to build rapport. So that's why I focus on that so much. Storytelling also is historically really important. Before the recorded word, all we had was storytelling. So that is something that throughout history, throughout human history, is something that is incredibly important to our survival as a species, to our connection to each other. So that's why we're focusing on it. So talking about the story of the United Community Transit Coalition. In September of 2022, we were granted the opportunity to work with the National Center for Mobility Management within the Wichita region. So it's Butler, Harvey, and Sedgwick counties were all selected to work on this project. And we wanted the National Center for Mobility Management, NCMM, that's what we're calling it from now on. We want NCMM to come in and help us figure out how to work together better to serve all of our residents. So our focus question is what's on the screen. That's what we wrote down at the beginning of the day. That's what we spent the entire day working on. So that question is, how might we increase collaboration among transportation agencies in Sedgwick, Harvey, and Butler counties in order to improve transportation for residents in those counties? So Amy facilitated the day, and we spent the entire day. There's 19 people from various organizations, transportation. There was a local mayor. I believe there were a couple healthcare agencies there as well. So we all spent the day figuring out. And what we settled in on was our goal was to increase collaboration. Very basic. That was also our focus question, was increase collaboration. So in order to get the goal, we asked 3 challenge questions. So 1, how do we get people to care about public transportation? If people don't know about our services, how do they use them? And if they don't care, why would they? Number 2 is why, and we kind of talked about that already. And then 3, who benefits from increased collaboration and how? So those were the challenge questions that we moved forward from on everything that we worked towards. And so again, our goal was to increase collaboration, and what we determined the means to that goal would be to create the toolkit that we're talking about today. So that toolkit would meet 3 focus areas: education, data, and replication. So education would be to determine what the education needs are in our community, in our Tri-County area, and the gaps that we needed to fill. So that leans into the marketing. What information does the public need on what our services are and what they do, and how do we fill that? The next was data. So identify and gather data that will get others invested in collaboration. So we're not really going to focus in on that today. There are a couple numbers that might be mentioned, but at the end, there is a link to the toolkit, and you can look at all of the data that we did end up gathering for our region. And then C, replication. Outline a clear process that can be shared and replicated. So within the toolkit itself, for each of the sections, it outlines exactly what each type of marketing content is. So for example, the first one is website content. It talks about what that is, and it talks about how to create that for your own services. There's specific tools, there are accessibility factors, and there are all of those elements for all 8 of the types of marketing content that we ended up creating. And then the picture on the side is just one of the pages that we created during the day. And that's actually what ended up guiding quite a bit of our work from there. So moving into the types of marketing content and engaging the audience itself. So like I said, there's the 8 different types that we talked about. Some of them are really simple and we won't spend a whole lot of time on, and others we'll spend a little bit more time on, put a little bit more focus. So we'll move into that. So website content. You want your website content to be clear and concise. Whatever your website is, you want to focus in on what you do. You want to make sure the website is easy to navigate. If there's a million different links to get to where you're going and the information is hard to find, people are going to give up. Generally, for most people, you spend maybe a minute or two trying to navigate a website, and then you're done. Unless you really need that information, you'll figure out a different way of finding it. You'll go to Google, you'll look at the Facebook page, whatever that looks like. Most people won't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out your website. So it needs to be easy to navigate. The information needs to be clear and concise. And you also, when you're building it, you need to think about who will be accessing your website. Are you building your website for writers who at 3 a.m. are like, oh my God, I don't have a ride tomorrow? Or are you building your website for potential funders and donors? Are you building your website for decision makers, elected officials? So those are the things that you need to think about before you create your content. And I'm going to say this a lot for each one of these. You need to define your audience. If that's the one thing you take from this, please take that. Whenever you are doing any sort of marketing, the first thing you have to do is define your audience. And it's okay if you have more than one audience. You just need to tailor different like marketing campaigns, different marketing tools towards different audiences. And when it comes to the website building, so going back to the clear and concise. So you really need to focus in on what your organization does, what your services are. Don't tell people what you don't do. Tell people what you actually do, what you can do, and make it easy for them to figure out how to access those services. So if someone needs to call in 24 hours in advance to a specific number, you write that out. Make it super easy up front. You make it just very clear on how to find that. And there are ways to do that for all of these. For website content, you can use titles, you can use different colors within your website. You can make some of the font bigger, or you can just make the whole page basically blank other than like your navigation menu on either the side or the top, and then just have that information there. There's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. You don't have to stick to one form. You just need to make sure that that information is up front and center. Especially if writers are your goal, you need to make sure that the writers know how to access the information. How do they access your services? And that again, back to the who, identify who is most likely to use your site and then organize the information accordingly. So that's what we were talking about, putting the writer information up front. But if you want to focus your website more towards elected officials and decision makers, then you would put data up front. And then information on how to access the services a little bit further down. So some best practices for website content, consistent design. So you don't want one page to be one color palette and then the next page to be a completely different color palette. You want it to feel like everything is consistent. Along with that, you want your navigation bar to stay in the same spot. In every single spot, the navigation menu needs to stay in the exact same spot, up at the top or on the side. And those are the spots where people expect to find them, and that's where they're going to look. Another method for like best practices is use a powerful action verbs, use an active voice. So you say, this is what we do, and this is what we can provide. So that's, again, don't talk about things that you can't do. Just focus in on what you actually do, and really get to the point, and keep it short, but make sure that there's substance in the short. So again, concise. Another best practice for websites is include a call to action button. So that it's not for all websites. Not every website is going to have a call to action button. But if you look at many nonprofits, their call to action button will be a donate button or a button where it's just easy to click and share information. Or you can have a button to get enrolled in a newsletter so people get more regular information from you. So there are a lot of different ways to use that, but a lot of times it is good to have a button, call to action, newsletter, something along those lines. And then something that is very niche, main navigation, they want it at the top or the left of the page like we were talking about. But most websites, if you look at them, the logo will be at the top left corner. And when you click on the logo, it takes you to the home page. That's not something that I really would have thought of before I started digging into this, and that's really like niche information. But that is pretty standard when it comes to websites. Most people will expect that. And I know that that's a lot of information. I know it can be a little intimidating. So National RTAP does provide a free website builder, and they also provide free website hosting through that builder. It's for all transit agencies and all transit projects. So even if they're not rural, they can still use this. I checked with them. So that is a really great tool that you can use. And there is a link to it later on this website, at least to National RTAP. So it is, you just go in and you pick a template and you plug in information, and that's it. And you tell them what your website name should be. It's very simple, and you don't really have to think about all the technical things. You still want to think about the language that you're using, but you don't have to think about all of the really like technical jargony stuff. So next is social media. And this one is another big one. There's so many social media apps out there. There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's X/Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's TikTok, there's YouTube, there's all of these different social medias. So you really want to pick one or two platforms to focus your attention on. You're not going to be effective if you're trying to learn how to provide social media across all of these different platforms. So pick one or two. Most of the transit agencies I've seen tend to be on Facebook. It's just easier. Instagram is also an easy one to have along with Facebook because they're under the Meta suite, and they have a business account where you can post to both Facebook and Instagram at the same time if you're posting pictures. So if you wanted to do two, those would probably be good. But Facebook, you tend to have a little bit of your older writers, and that's where a lot of our focus is on, is organizations that operate out of AAAs and things like that. So Facebook is generally a pretty good one. But again, if you're trying to get new audience members on Facebook, that one's hard. Like I'd say probably 85% of my Facebook feed is people that I don't know, or ads, and maybe 10 to 15% is actually content I know, or people that I know. So it's a little hard to get new followers on Facebook. So you really have to be a little intentional about how you advertise your advertising. It gets complicated there. But again, with your social media, you want to identify your target audience and your goal. So your target audience, it could again be elected officials, it could be potential writers, it could be the community, it could be actual writers. If you think about some of the agencies that we work with, those who work with people with intellectual disabilities or developmental disabilities, they're not generally, their social media is not generally for their clients. It's for parents and caregivers and guardians and community members. So you want to think about who your audience is and be intentional. And along with the goal, so common goals for social media are to drive traffic to a website. They're to capture attention, and they're to gather allies. And one thing that I do on social media is I go through and I find organizations that are similar or in our area, from the organization page. So the mobility managers have the Kansas Rides Facebook page. And we'll go in and we'll find all the organizations that we work with and similar organizations, and we'll follow those pages. And we will respond to messages that they say every once in a while. We'll share things that they say. And just by us following them, they follow us back. So that's a really simple technique, is just know some of the organizations, type in their name real quick, give them a follow, like some of their things, comment. It's very simple. When you're sharing information to social media, it needs to be bite-sized information. Again, because people are just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and there's so many different things. So it needs to be something small, easy to remember, and something that captures attention. So that's thinking about the types of stories that create emotional connection. And then again, you want to also think about your audience. So define your audience. So there's different motivations for each audience. And we do talk about this in the toolkit, and I have it here in my notes. So decision makers want to know about the impact that your service has, whether that's on the lives of their constituents, whether it's an economic impact, it's the impact on the budget that they create. Those are the types of things that decision makers want. The elected officials, the city and county managers, the CEOs, that's the information that those people want. Caregivers want to know how they can best help those that they're caring for, and how your services help them help their dependents, their caregivees. Older adults generally want to see resources on how they can get themselves and their loved ones to their destination safely. For those of you who do work with older adults, you know, there's quite a few who are really resistant to using services. So for those individuals, when I talk to them, I'm always like, oh, you know, if you have a friend or a neighbor or a family member who needs these services, here's what they look like. Here's what that looks like. So that's another way of getting the information out to someone who might need it, but also is maybe a little resistant against it. So those with a disability, they want to see how the service can work for their lives. So if you're sharing pictures, share pictures of what the ramp looks like and how easy it is to use the ramp to get on the vehicle. That's a really simple way of just showing how that service is easy for them and how it works for their lives. Youth want to see how transit can be fun and how it's not intimidating. Youth aren't going to get on a vehicle if it seems sketchy or if it's scary or they don't know what to do. Their guardians also want to know that it's safe for the youth that they're in charge of. And then those with transportation needs want to see how they can get to where they need to go safely and on time. And that's something that we'll see with like business owners. They want to see that their employees, if they're using transportation, how they can get there on time, because they don't want the transportation needs to impact their own business. Videos is another one we're going to spend a couple minutes on. So there's a whole bunch of types of videos that we can talk about. So how-to videos, how to ride the bus, how to ride the van, how to schedule a ride. Those are quick and easy and simple to make. And those are very easy, easy way to get people informed of what your service is and how to use it and make it less intimidating, make it more real. And that's also a way of introducing riders to your staff and showing how friendly and helpful transportation staff is. Examples of accessibility or other features. So that is what we were just talking about on the social media of sharing how to use the ramp or what that looks like. It could be for vehicles with bike racks. You could show how to use a bike rack. So if there's someone who wants to use the vehicle but wants to ride their bike as well, then there's a good way of showing that. Writer stories, and we'll talk a little bit more about actual writer stories later. There's an entire section for that on the next slide, actually. But things like why I ride and the impacts of transportation, those are very impactful, incredibly impactful. And then staff stories or meet your drivers, those are very impactful as well, because people who, again, are intimidated about transportation or who have negative perceptions about transportation, they want to change those perceptions, and we want to change those for them. And that's something that we do see is people have very specific notions of what public transportation is and what it isn't, and who it's for and who it's not for. So it's our job to change those perceptions into the reality of what transportation actually is, who the riders are, who the drivers are, and that the service generally is for everyone, and at least in general public transit. The services are for everyone. It's not just for Billy Sue down the street who's 92 and can't drive anymore because she can't see. So that's our job with the marketing, is to change those stories and to change that emotional impact that comes with that story. So there are several different types of videos, and we really dig into this into the toolkit. But for now, we'll talk about the short form and the long form content. So short form video is like Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, TikToks. For our purposes, we defined short form is anything under 3 minutes. So these are the videos that are really quick snippets of information. They really should get the watcher's attention within the first 1 to 3 seconds. If anyone else, I personally really love watching reels and videos, and if a video doesn't get my attention quickly, I just scroll right off of it. And that's pretty standard of anyone who does watch short form content, short form video content, is that if the attention isn't caught quickly, then it's just going to be scrolled right on past. And that's if you're trying to get attention through the algorithm. You don't really need to worry about that if you're not posting for the algorithm. So don't let me scare you away from short form content. It is just something that it tends to be more entertaining, more informative. They tend to be more visually appealing. And you want for short form content to be easily digestible. So it needs to be easy to share. It needs to be something that generally these are the more light and funny content videos versus the other type, which is the long form videos. So the long form videos are those, for our definition, 3 minutes or longer. So this is really when you dive in more into in-depth. So this is when you have like really long writer stories, or maybe you tell an entire transportation story, which we've seen in videos previously shared about like Kansas transportation, where it shows like several different writer stories, and it might throw in some driver stories across that, and then it'll have content of like buses moving through, or the vehicles moving like down the road or through, I want to say through fields, but that's not, it's like in front of fields. Whatever that might look like. So it tells a longer story, and so it's less upfront and in your face. So those are the videos that are a little bit longer. Those are the ones that they're shared, but because they're longer, you have to really be intentional about who the audience is, on that one. It does also create more time for the viewer to create that stronger emotional connection. So again, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have all of the information, all of the like catchy stuff in the first 1 to 3 seconds. You do still want it to be informative and catchy, but it doesn't have to be as catchy, if that makes sense. For filming these videos, a phone camera is fine. Most cameras and phones, at least the more modern phones, will be more than fine for your purposes. You don't need fancy camera equipment or anything like that. If you do want to do something that looks a little more high budget, then you can definitely reach out to RTAP. At least I'm saying that. I'm sure you can reach out to RTAP and talk about what those options are and what that would look like. There are, colleges always have students that are looking to do projects. So there are a lot of ways of doing that. Along with all of these, you also just want to talk to your agency. Like, you don't have to be the only person to doing this. And then you might already have someone in your agency who's doing marketing, maybe for a different department. So talk to that person and see what they've done. And maybe you could create, let's say you work out of a county. Maybe the county could create an entire video over multiple different services, and you could be part of that. And that would be a little bit higher budget than just using your phone. So there are a lot of different ways of doing this, but videos are really highly effective. They do unfortunately take a little bit longer to produce and make, but you can share those videos for years to come. Excuse me. So testimonials. These are your writer stories. They're your driver stories. When we were doing the research for the United Community Transit Coalition, UCTC Toolkit, we found this research from Big Commerce that said 72% of consumers, and that's across all fields. It's not transportation specific at all. This is just across, just in general when it comes to marketing. 72% of consumers reported that positive reviews and testimonials increase their trust in the organization, business, or agency. So 72% of people report that positive reviews have a positive influence on them. So your testimonials don't have to be videos like what we talked about in the last slide. If you've ever looked at a website for a small business and seen just a written testimonial or a written review, that works as well. So testimonials have a huge impact. And if that's not something that you're doing, it's something that you very easily could do. If you have a regular writer, you can reach out to them and say, hey, could you write a review for us? Is there something that you would like to share? And, some will say no, and that's okay, but you really only need 1 or 2. You don't need a whole bunch of testimonials. When we talk about this, we're talking about writer stories and driver stories. So writer stories, often, if you really look at the whole of them, they focus on the independence that individuals gain or keep from having safe and affordable transportation. So if we're talking about older adults, maybe you have rural older adults, transportation allows them to age in place. It allows them to stay in their home that they've had in their family for generations, and not move further into the city, closer to where medical services are and other services. So it allows independence. It allows them to keep that independence for as long as possible. When we're talking about people who don't have a personal vehicle, transportation gets them to and from work, and allows them to independently work, to go to the grocery store, to visit their friends, all of the things that you all already know that we do, but the general public doesn't know as well. When we're talking about ridership and independence, parents and caregivers free up some of their time when someone else is taking their the child or whoever they're caring for to appointments or to their work or their day centers or school or whatever that looks like. It frees up time having access to transportation. So these are the things that we need to be talking about and sharing. And it's hard when we're busy. When we're focusing on providing the excellent service, it's hard to talk about the excellent service that we're providing. But that's how we share. And we do need to share about ourselves and about the good things that we do. Talking about driver and staff testimonials, these again share with the riders what they can expect to experience. And it doesn't have to be produced from a way or from a perspective of here's what your experience. It's just the driver talking about what they do. And it's that simple. And you could write that on your website. You could post that on your Facebook with a picture of that driver, with the driver just talking about their day or what they love about their job. Like it's really simple. And for drivers, especially in staff and dispatchers, that really is a way for them to feel appreciated and special. And it's a good way of improving morale too. So that has multiple purposes when you share that. When we're talking about testimonials and driver stories, I'm sure there are plenty that stick out to you. There's one that I heard in a national conference that always it always gets me in my feels and it always chokes me up a little bit. But there was, I believe it was a rural agency. There was a driver who went to pick up a regular rider. I believe it was an older adult. And this person, the driver knew that this person was always on time. They were always ready, always like at the front door or walking on their way out when the bus was driving up. So there was one day when there were a no-show and the driver knew something was wrong. So they called a wellness check. And it turns out that that driver had fallen. And who knows how long that person would have been there alone with, I believe it was a broken hip, if that driver hadn't taken the time. And again, that story always gets me. And it's just a simple story, but those are the things that form that emotional connection. And I heard that story years ago, and it still always gets me. So these are the stories that we want to tell. And it doesn't always have to be something big like that. It could just be, doing a simple wellness check. It could be maybe a rider didn't talk to anyone but the driver for that day, or the driver had a really great conversation or referred someone to resources, helped them get a ramp to their house, maybe referred them to resources for that. There are a lot of different ways this can look. So talking about specific populations, because again, you want to define your audience for testimonials. We talked about this a little bit, but businesses and employers want to see how employees can get to work on time. And they want to see how dependable the service is and how regular it is. And they also want to know about the economic impact. There's some really great data that shows the economic impact of transportation. So sharing information like that, which you won't share economic impact generally in testimonials, but that is something that business owners want to see. When we're doing testimonials for social service and medical agencies, they want to see the positive impact it has on their clients' lives. They want to see that Jimmy Bob is getting to dialysis 3 times a week and is getting there on time and has a safe way to get home afterwards. So these are, again, define your audience, figure out what the message what the most impactful message would be for the audience. And when I say most impactful, it's going to be different from person to person. Think about what you think would be impactful and try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. That is the beauty of marketing, is you just get time to try it again and try something else. Next is infographics. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Most people know what an infographic is. It's hard to build emotional impact with an infographic. But when you're focusing on them, you want to use font size and type to draw the eye to specific information. Infographics are more like charts. They're more image-based than text-based. So the text that you do have, you really want to draw the attention, the eye to. You also want to avoid technical jargon. Most people aren't going to know what demand response is, or what paratransit is, if that's the term that you use. So you just want to make it as simple as easy. Think for all across the board when you're doing like marketing and advertising, think like 5th grade reading level. That's the general recommended, is 5th grade. Along with infographics, we have one here. Will the audience remember all the data presented in an infographic? No. And then no, but in red. They're not going to remember it, and that's perfectly okay. So that's really that's something you want to keep in mind, is that all the information is not going to be remembered. So just focus in on what you do want to be remembered and highlight that. Make the font colorful, make it bigger, really do what you can to highlight that information. One-pagers. Sorry for all the text, but that feels kind of accurate for a one-pager. A one-pager is kind of a written elevator speech / marketing pitch all together. So it will have a mixture of the basic information about your organization, about your services. It'll have a few data points. Think about who you serve, how many rides you provide, things like that. And then it will also have short impact reports, which are testimonial statements, basically. So you want this information to present for a variety of writers. So kind of a range of what your services look like. Like when you're marketing, don't always show the same type of person. Like you don't want the same stereotype. Like you don't want a 94-year-old white grandmother to be the same person that you show over and over and over. Like think about all of the different people who use your services, or who might use your services, who live in your service area, and figure out how to show those people as well. Because when people are looking at a service, they want to see someone who looks like them. So our one-pagers, generally that's going to be more for decision makers, or for parents and guardians, caregivers. It's less going to be for your general writer. So think more about how to create the information. Again, how to tailor that information to whoever you're making the one-pager for. Not that the one-pager doesn't have a place in marketing, it does, that's why it's here. But it's not always the most effective tool for what you're going for. This you'll use more for when you're really sharing about your services to people who can make changes to that service. And again, think of it as a sales pitch. You are selling your service to whoever you're presenting it to. So an example is decision makers. If you give them a one-pager, they're given, like elected officials, let's focus on them. They're given a lot of information all the time. So you really want to give them concise information that's impactful. We talked about this earlier, but show them how your services impact their constituents. and how that improves your constituents' lives and what the impact is on the economy and the budget. Those are really, really important things. So you want to include relevant data points and highlight short testimonials. So again, testimonials are a big thing, easy to grab, and they have a place among all of these others. Moving into the next one, flyers. Another one we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on. I did include two of the flyers that I personally made and use. So the one on the left, the Did You Know? This is data is really small from APTA. But I use this one specifically to highlight the little QR code. You can make a QR code for any link. I wouldn't scan QR codes in public or things that are sent to you, but there is always the option for people to, they're kind of going out of style a little bit with all the QR code scams that are going around. But QR codes are still an option to put onto your flyers to get people to your website. If you look at the other flyer, the economic benefits, at the bottom, there is the website. Locally, Kansas Rides has an easy to remember website, ksrides.org. But if your website is super long, most people aren't going to spend the time to type in that website into their phone or take a picture of it and then type it when they get home, unless it's something that they're really, really invested in. So you definitely want to have that information available on whatever you share, your flyers, but just think about how you're going to share that information and what people will most likely do. So our final one that we're going to discuss before we move into our tools is talking points. So talking points, you've all seen a PowerPoint, you're looking at one right now. Think mental bullet points. Make sure that your main point is clear. So really, have an elevator pitch, write it out and practice it. Think of different ways to say it. Have a few little data points about your organization memorized and just have those ready. And if you don't want to have them ready, it's very easy to put them on an index card or something small and keep them around with you. Excuse me. If you carry around a notebook or something like that, it's easy to have it in a specific spot and mark it. And then if you need it, you can flip open to it and use that as a reference, especially for people who get a little bit more nervous about talking in public. That's a great way of having it easy and still easy in there, but still hiding it a little bit. So transit specific talking points. You want to have information on your service. It's always good to know about services around you as well, but specifically just know your organization. And that's super simple, especially for anyone who's been in an organization more than a couple months. Most people are already going to have some level of relative expertise on that. So that one's a fairly simple one. Knowing some basic information around the importance of transit or transportation is fantastic. If you're able to link that specifically to your clients, then that's also great to your clients or writers. But we all know, again, that transportation improves quality of life for the people that we provide it for. Other people don't know that. So this basic information that to us seems really, really basic, other people might not know that. So these are the things that you want to think about is what do you already know? You're already the expert on your own services. So how do you share that information in a way that is impactful and will make a statement? Some basic data points. And if you don't want to memorize that, that's okay. We'll talk about that on how to have that information easily accessible here in a minute. And then any data or information geared towards dispelling any negative preconceived notions towards what transit is and who it serves. So depending on where you're at, there could be some stereotypes against who transit is for. So just have that information ready. If someone says a really negative statement, you can be like, actually, here's what we do, here's who we serve, this is what we do instead of that. So it's important to, I know we've gone over a lot of information, but as a starter point, you can make your own like marketing toolkit, your own little starter pack. So you could either on one page or create a folder of information for you to have. And then on this little chart, you have all the different tools. So you have definition of who your audience is. And again, you can have more than one audience. That is perfectly fine. But you want to state who each of those audiences could be. So community members, clients, writers, potential writers. You just want to have all of that written down. And I know it's super basic, but having that information in a place where if you suddenly leave, the next person can find and pick up and move forward from, that's really important. Your writer and driver stories, have those ready. Have those prepped and ready. You could do a one campaign a year where you gather testimonials, where you gather writer and driver stories, and then store them, and throughout the year use them, and then reuse them in a different format. There's nothing wrong with reusing old content. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Continue to use the information that you have, and that's perfectly okay. If you have a driver testimonial that really hits the point, use that same driver story or same story for 5 or 10 years. That's okay. Until you find one that hits them the same way. There's nothing wrong with that. Have your basic data points written out, your basic talking points written out, and then have a little folder or section where you have all your logos, your graphic scheme, your color scheme, all your fonts, have all that written out, have it saved in one spot so that when you go to build whatever your next marketing tool is, then it's there. And then everything that you do end up building, put it in that same folder or in that same spot. We talked about this a little bit, but for use your existing resources, if there's someone in your organization in a different department or someone in your department who already does marketing, already does all of this and does it really well, use them, talk to them, learn from them. And then other tools, I'm a huge fan of Canva. If you haven't used it, it's a website where you can design flyers, social media posts, and there's templates that are already there and already made for you. So if you if you don't feel confident in your skills, then you can use those and just change the colors, change the logos out, change the graphics. It's very simple, very easy to learn. There's Microsoft Office. I didn't write it, but Adobe Suite has plenty of tools. And then Kansas RTAP and National RTAP both have resources that are available. So real quick, final tips and takeaways. Again, if the only thing that you get from this is to define your audience, then I did my job. So define your audience for whatever you're doing, whenever it's marketing, figure out who your audience is and go from there. You don't start until you know who you're talking to. You find your emotional connection. So that story I told earlier that had me choking up. Find something like that that works for you, that works for your services. And it doesn't have to be something crazy. It can be something really simple, but something that has an impact on someone's life. Because the story is what moves your audience. It's not the data points. Those are really important, but it's the story that's going to get attention, and that's going to move your audience and get them involved. And you see that a lot with nonprofits. Nonprofits that have a great story, those are the ones that have a lot of community involvement. So look at the organizations in your area or around you and find ones that have a good story and figure out the elements of that that could work for you. And then finally, again, have that basic toolkit ready. Have it locked and loaded. Have it written down, even if it's something that you know, have it written, have it easy. Make it so that other people can do it too. replicate that information. So that is the end. If anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to type them out while we're talking about that, the links and sources. So Kansas Rides, like I mentioned earlier, is the Mobility Manager website. It has links to all of the transportation resources across the state, has all of our events. The second link, the Transit Marketing Toolkit, and that digs further into all of these elements that we talked about. That's the United Community Transit Coalition marketing toolkit that we talked about. Kansas RTAP has resources. I put the link to the new KDOT website here for you. And the National RTAP also has a marketing toolkit. So you don't have to start from the beginning. There's already 2 marketing toolkits here for you to use and to create. So with that, I will stop talking. And if there's any questions, Nikila, I'll pass it back to you.
Amazing. That was a great presentation, Jessica. I mean, as you said, to making it more personal, making it more relatable, any word going out would be more impactful. And I feel like this presentation has done that. So that's amazing. And any questions, please feel free to share on the chat. We do have the very first question. Jennifer asks you, do you have any short video application? I think preferred short video app. Correct me, Jennifer, if I'm wrong, but yeah.
So as far as short videos, I'm guessing you're talking about editing, and if not, correct me. But for editing, CapCut is actually a really good one. It is connected to TikTok, but I believe you can just download CapCut and then use it as an editing tool, and then download or upload that video everywhere. For non-social media, like for sharing on non-social media.
I'll just undo my mic. Yeah, so like videos that we could post either to social media or to our website.
Yeah, so honestly, CapCut's probably the easiest. Your phone app might have a video editing, and I believe there are some written in the actual toolkit that aren't mentioned. But off the top of my head, CapCut is the one that most people recommend. I believe if you don't want to pay for that one, then at the end it has a little CapCut logo. But I believe there's a couple others that you can download. There's also things that you pay for, like Adobe has one. There's a couple others, but as far as the cheaper ones, honestly, you can just download one off of your app store, because most likely you'll be making it on your phone, and then just kind of experiment from there. But yeah, and those are the ones that are most generally used and recommended.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a. I mean, I do have a question, Jessica. I know you're the mobility manager for one of the CTDs, and I'm sure, like there are some agencies that has, less than 5 employees, right? And, building some design materials or something could be bit work for them. So do you have any suggestions, or do you say this specific tool doesn't require much time and it would be more effective? So do you have any specific tools or for small agencies that are run by less than 5 employees?
Yeah, so that one's hard. So it's still going to take the time to build the basic toolkit, regardless of what your agency is. Like, it still requires that time. So if you don't have enough employees, you don't have enough time, just reach out to one of the mobility managers. You can reach out to me or any of the others, and we'll do what we can. Even if we're not your mobility manager, we're still here to serve across the state. So you can reach out to any of us and we can help take a little bit of that load off of you, and help get you started on that, and we'll do what we can. So that's one resource. And then just utilize the existing resources that are already there, those toolkits. And then if you have any further questions, again, reach out to your resources, to me, to the mobility managers, to our top. They might have some other resources that I don't have. So feel free. There are resources out there, and we don't want to make this intimidating or hard. So we'll do what we can for you, for sure.
Amazing. And actually, that's a good point. I mean, along with the mobility managers, I mean, if you want to reach out to National RTAP, like as Jessica mentioned, they have a free website tool that you can build. We are happy to connect you with those people, because I know it could be quite intimidating when you're reaching out to completely a new person. So Kansas RTAP is here to help as well. I know it's 12:01, but again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email Jessica or us at Kansas RTAP. Again, we are recording this webinar, which will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please share it with your colleagues or employees if they have missed this webinar due to other commitments. Yeah, and also please check out our past webinars too on our YouTube. And if nothing else, let's end the webinar session now. And again, thank you so much, Jessica. It's a wonderful presentation and information that you have shared. So, thank you all and have a great day.